like to welcome everybody to Full Circle Magic. We got Kevin Cunliffe here today, mentalist and creator. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing really well, actually. Been working on plenty new items, as you can probably see in the background here. Doing designing a new show as well, which I'm looking forward to getting on the road shortly. So it's been keeping me optimistic, I think, is the easiest thing I can say.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I wanted to ask you the question that we start off when we ask everybody stuff. How
No
did you
problem.
get started into magic?
The thing that got me started was actually my father. He was an entertainer, working in the circuses when I was actually born. So I was physically born in a circus. And I've been performing ever since. Um, the photograph actually here behind me. That's actually a photograph of myself, my father, and my mother. I don't know if it's clear on the feed here, but I'm actually sat on a bed of nails. 3 week old, I was sat on a bed of nails, working in circuses, and I've been doing it ever since. Going all over, taking me all over the place. But yeah.
Oh, that's great, man. That's great. So how did you transition into mentalism?
Mentalism was something I wanted to do from a very young age. I was fascinated with people like David Berglas when I was growing up, and throughout the years, people like Kreskin and all the old time like mentalists that obviously I was brought up watching. And right away from a very early young age, as like 7, 8 year old, I always wanted to do that similar kind of thing. I always felt that doing mentalism, whether performing it or physically watching it, it always had a greater impact on a spectator, using very minimalistic props, either a piece of paper, a book, or something just out of their own mind. Um, it seemed a hell of a lot more powerful. Magic that happens in a person's own head. Um, it seemed like something to go anywhere in the world and be able to perform with next to no props at all. And that's what I absolutely loved about it. And right away from a very young age, that's what I wanted to do. Um, However, at that same young age, I found it very difficult to make it convincing enough as a child performing mentalism. So at the time, I was working more with manipulation, card magic, things like that. And as I got older, obviously my skills adapted and my techniques varied. But these are all skills that I learned as a manipulator, and they all help within the actual things that I do today.
What advice would you give to someone who's trying to get their name out there and trying to get gigs and stuff like that?
Um, I think for someone like kind of coming new onto the scene, just trying to make themselves aware, is simply try and go to like a local bar or restaurant, and just simply have a word with the owner, and just say, look, this is who I am, this is what I do. Would you mind if I came in like maybe one afternoon? Um, Maybe even give them a little demonstration. I won't say, go over the top and go fully prepared, like 2, 3 hours worth of material. Just 2 or 3 tricks. Doesn't even have to be your best material. And, just try and impress the owner. You don't have to do a show there and there. And if they like you, maybe you can try and get, offered to do them like a show, maybe one night that month or that week. Try and get some posters made up. They don't have to be anything overpriced at that time. They could just be home printouts on, A4 photo paper or something like that. Make sure you've got your own contact details on a photograph of you, because that way then that'll generate a little bit of interest. And obviously, the idea is then you're trying to raise as much awareness towards you and also to that venue. And on the night, then obviously if it does turn out that there are more people coming in to see you, then that gets you a bit of a reputation then with that owner. Um, in doing that, what you're actually doing then is basically making that owner more money, but also he will then want to get you back. And once you've basically kind of got your foot in the doorway with that company, it's easier then to get like a more of an established like running contract with them, whether it's once a week, once a month, something like that. And as soon as you've got one venue, you can then adapt that outwards. But that's basically what I would happily advise to anyone that's never tried to get work in that situation. That's probably about the easiest method.
I think that's some great advice, really. I mean, you really were on point with that. I have another question from the forums. They want to know how you feel about mixing magic and mentalism together.
Um, as an individual show, I try and keep the two separate. I wouldn't ever dream of walking out on stage with like some sort of big, glitzy, glamorous, overly decorated box and say, "Hey, look, here's an empty box," and then suddenly try and do a mentalism with them together. I used to have three totally separate shows. One, which was like your standard, like
I don't mean to interrupt
stand-up
you, but
cabaret.
can you pull your
Sorry,
mic back just a little bit? You're coming out a little bit muffled.
how's that? Is that better? Is that any
Uh,
better? Can you hear that? Is
yeah, let's see
that
here.
better? Is that
Let's
better
check
for you?
through the forum here. I believe that's better.
Okay.
Pull it back just a little bit. It was just a little muffled.
Okay.
I didn't mean to
How's
cut
that?
you off there. Sorry about that.
No, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Obviously, if it's coming through. Uh, um, okay. Yeah. Basically, I would have like three totally separate, totally different scripted shows. One totally dedicated to the idea of mentalism. One which was more the magic. So things which are dedicated as more of a stand-up crowd, which is orientated to the full family. And then the third one, which was more sideshow and stunts, like that. So everything from like blockheads, eating up glass, razor blades, human pincushion, all that kind of stuff. I had basically for my own health reasons, I had to stop doing that performance. Um, what just over 2 years ago, because I had a very very bad injury, which basically meant that I had to stop doing a lot of those stunts. On occasion, I do try and incorporate some of those within some of my other performances. Um, but as magic, as such, like the rabbit out the hat, for example, I would never dream of doing that with what obviously we would class as mentalism, say metal bending or direct thought transfers, image duplications, anything like that. I wouldn't ever try and flash them together. Um, I do believe you can do mind reading using playing cards. Yeah, like
I was actually going to ask you that. What do you feel about playing cards and mentalism?
um, personal opinion is yes, you can get away with it, but it simply depends on how you present it. Because if you are presenting it as probably going to say more like a gambling kind of thing, then it's the practicality side of it. I mean, the way that a spectator is going to view this, how do they feel that this is useful to them? This is why, quite famously, things like the pin number predictions are always good. Things like the Grand National or Super Bowl predictions, because basically the spectator will always look upon this and think, well, how can this be good for me? And end of the day, they all want to make money. So whether they're gambling or anything like that, they want to know how secure it is. They want to be like Superman. They want to know what it's like to be able to read a person's mind. So obviously, utilizing playing cards in that kind of scenario. So, for instance, to be able to know the cards that a person is playing you as an opponent without ever touching them, looking at them, just looking in their eye and telling them every single card that they're just simply looking at, then that is obviously extremely powerful. To do it as, pick a card, any card, look at it, remember it, and then name that card, then it becomes more of a magic trick rather than mentalism. Even though a lot of the methods and techniques are exceptionally similar, and most are exactly the same, it's just all to do with the presentation. So I guess it can have its place within a mentalist show It's purely simply how you present it. Also, I find that obviously using standard playing cards on stage can be extremely difficult as well, because basically people can't see them unless you're obviously using projectors and camera equipment and everything else. So what could initially be a very easy routine suddenly becomes a very, very costly routine because you're talking several £100 for projectors and camera crew and everything else. So it's all down to basically what you have available to you at the time. Um, and obviously there are many other routines out there for that same kind of price. Uh, Once you start thinking about using a pack of playing cards on stage and you needing camera equipment and everything else, there are 1,001 other routines out there which, when you're making it, is a cash investment, which will do just the same, if not a lot better. So again, it's purely simply what is available to you at the time.
Excellent, excellent. And this is a question from Frank. He wants to know, how do you put together a mentalism show, and what's your favorite format?
Right. Okay. My personal method for putting scripting any kind of performance is I always want to end with something grand and a powerful ending to the show. Something that people are going to walk away with and remember. And then I basically work back from there. So what I would do is I would have one big grand routine or illusion or whatever it may be, regardless of what it is, the format of the show. And then I would try and find or even design something a much simpler format or of that same method or effect. So whether I'm doing a newspaper prediction, whether I'm ending the show on a Russian roulette, I will simply try and script the entire show so that I'm starting off with something that seems so simple, so innocent, but ending in such a big, dramatic way. For argument's sake, I may end the show with a live Russian roulette, but I might start that show with a guess which hand the coin routine is in. So it's the same kind of idea of an effect. You are trying to guess where an item is. But obviously the danger and the focus is building gradually throughout the show to the ultimate ending where now you've actually got a bullet loaded in a gun against your head and now you're risking all on the same kind of idea of chance and risk. So to try and script the show, that is basically how I would begin. I would begin at the end and then gradually build up to that ending. If that makes any sense.
Excellent. And you made some very good points there. I know when I'm putting together my show, I mean, the script and the blocking are crucial, especially in mentalism. I mean,
and it's not just basically the routines that you need or want to perform as well. You've also got to think, and there you just mentioned about blocking as well. You've also not just got to think about yours, but obviously on stage hands if you have any. Obviously then you've got lighting technicians, and if you need certain tables of chairs to be in the right order, it ends up almost like a dance routine. And especially with mentalism, you're needing to get certain spectators out of the audience. Whether you need a gentleman to use with a jacket or a lady to use lipstick, things like that. So blocking is very, very essential. I would say your blocking is as essential as your pattern and presentation in a lot of shows. So that is a crucial thing that most people forget about up until on the night, and then you can always tell if you're tripping yourself up or the stage ends up cluttered with tables and chairs and things all over the place.
if you could just adjust your mic for us just a little bit once more time, please.
Yeah, is that cutting in and out again? There you go. Can you hear that again?
Yeah, that's great. I was wondering also, I know you're a creator. You've got some great stuff on the market.
Yeah.
What is your creative process? What do you do when you go out to effect? Can you tell us a little bit about your thinking and the process that you go through?
Yeah, a lot. It does vary quite a lot. A lot of the products I come up with comes to me with this is going to sound absolutely insane, but a lot comes to me in like dream sequence. So I may, because I've been doing magic and, mentalism that long now, that I dream a lot about performing. Maybe I've been doing quite a long show or festival or something like that, and I may dream about that same show a few weeks later, but the show I'm actually doing and the material I'm working may be totally different, things that I've never seen or used before. So that when I then wake up, I think, you know what, that was actually a really good routine. I wonder how I could actually do that in real life. And then I'll sit down with pen and paper and try and work out methods and techniques as to how to
Sit
make
there and reverse engineer it.
basically, yeah. And then I would actually then research into the methods that I've come up with or the routines themselves to see if anyone else has ever come up with something similar, or if they have their own methods in doing what I've actually, thought up. Other ways I come up with it is I might hear a particular piece of music, um, and I would then think up routines purely and simply that I could work with that particular piece of music, whether it's the lyrics or whether it's a classical piece and it's using crescendos and things like that. At the moment, I'm actually scripted to do a music festival here in Lancaster, UK, in October, um, and the entire show is based around that old music. So everything that I've got to do has to be done with music. Um, I'm quite well known for doing a card routine to the Ace of Spades by Motorhead, um, which is basically like a manipulation card control routine. So every time a card in the actual track is named and finding that within the deck whilst shuffling and mixing cards. I also do various other pieces with other classic items as well. But I would say either like dream sequences or using classical music or just things every day that I find I think, you know what, that would actually really
I'm
help.
having a little bit trouble hearing you, buddy.
Is that any better?
Yeah, that's perfect. That sounds a lot better.
Okay. I don't know. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. Yeah, so I think either dream sequences and reverse engineering it, or I would actually um, find a piece of music or hear something, whether it's an instrumental piece from like the backing music of the film, uh, or just, I've been around the shops or something, and I can hear music playing in the background or even listening to the radio. Um, I would hear a tune and I think, you know what, that would be really, really cool to use on stage. Um, but either or, those are normally the two methods I would find a piece for. Um, but yeah, so I hope that helps.
So, what's your favorite effect to perform that you've created? First of all, and then we're going to ask what's your favorite effect that someone else has.
Overall, I think my two favourite is either the Ace of Spades by the Motorhead, the card routine I was just speaking of, and the second one, which I always carry with me, is Cognition, the mental music I created in, I think it's 2009. I created that. I've actually got that here in front of me as well. So you can see that. I love it because it is so an innocent routine, and it's basically a business card holder. Um, so it just fits in the pocket and I can use it wherever, whether it's close up stage, impromptu, it's always ready good to go. Those are basically the two routines I always try and carry with me. Without a doubt, they're always the two most powerful routines that I perform. So
Who in today's market inspires you? Like, I mean, who are some of your inspirations in mentalism and magic?
Oh, that's a very good question. I love a lot of Bob Cassidy's work. I absolutely adore that man. Leo as well. They both have some excellent, excellent material, without a shadow of a doubt. Also Weber as well. A lot of his
Weber is a genius too. They're both genius.
exactly that. Yeah. So I would say any one of those three. If anyone obviously watching this isn't familiar with their work, highly recommend it. Get the books, get the videos, watch them, learn them, and not just necessarily the routines or the tricks that they revealing, but I would say, focus more on the actual methods that they actually discuss, especially with the Hilton's material as well. He has some absolutely brilliant methods. Um, and when you start thinking outside the box, you can actually apply them to 1,001 of the different routines. Um, some absolutely brilliant material, whether it's his live lectures or his books. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and I was going to ask you, I mean, I think one of the problem with the DVD medium that we have
yeah,
today is that, you know, when people learn, they pick up the habits and traits of the performers that they're learning from,
exactly that,
and
exactly
they
that.
don't have their own style. Don't you agree? Or
I agree to that extremely strongly. Yes. I mean, when I'm even tutoring face to face with other entertainers or when I'm doing the lectures, I always try and stress this. You know, do whatever comfortable is to you, but also, you know, use mirrors, use, you know, most laptops and handheld phones now all have camera and video playback. So just place that in 30 different locations and film yourself doing that same routine. Because whatever you can't see yourself, you might be exposing from a different angle. Um, and basically try and rehearse in that way. You know, you might be brilliant at farming, you know, so you can't see it, but what you're actually doing is flashing it to the entire room in the head of you. Um, and obviously the idea is to do it the other way around. Um, so yeah, I strongly agree with using mirrors and video to basically rehearse with, but not necessarily to watch someone else because if they have a bad habit, a lot of people can also, like you say, adopt that bad habit, um, whether it be a purposeful thing, you know, oh well, this person palmed the card like that or did a pass in a strange way, um, whether it's using cards or whatever. Oh well, that must be the way that I have to do it as well. Then whatever techniques that you would have learned naturally yourself, you're now having to change and adapt to match that of someone else. And I don't think that's the right way to go about it. You need to be doing whatever's comfortable for you, so that when you're in that live situation, performing for family, friends, in a restaurant bar, wherever you are performing, you need to be doing it so you're totally second nature, not that you're having to burn your own hands to make sure that you're not exposing the method. Um, so I think that's where a lot of especially beginners, beginners in any form of entertainment, when they're watching these DVDs, that's something that they really do need to be careful of doing, picking up bad examples, bad habits.
yeah, and it really translates, and it's important as a beginner to really find yourself. And I mean, I know for a while when I was younger, I used to copy the styles of some of my favorite acts, and then I had to go
Yeah,
out and I had to, do some soul search. I had to find out who Morgan Spurlock was, you know?
yeah, that's it. That's exactly what I was just saying. Yeah, everyone needs to find their own comfort zone, their own persona on stage, whether it's close up, whether it's on stage, whatever. You need your own character, you need your own persona, and the only way that you're going to do that is physically going out there, and doing that work, putting yourself in the firing line of spectators. And if they criticize you at first, then don't worry about it.
But
Um,
you'll grow as a performer, and that's the thing.
that's
I
it.
mean, and your character will grow,
So
and it's starting off. The best advice I ever got was go somewhere and be bad.
exactly that. In one of my recent books that I wrote, all about thread work, I actually gave some advice in there which was given to me when I was a really young age, and that was basically when you are first starting out, basically go to like a local nursing home where OAPs are and things like that, because it's pretty unknown that a lot of entertainers go to these places anyway, and these people are great of anyone going in there and visiting them anywhere. And they tend to be really nice people. So it's always great if you have got new material, you can go to these places, put together a short set, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. Go down there and try it out. You entertain the old folks. 9 out of 10, they love it. And if it all goes totally belly upwards, it doesn't matter. You know, you're not looking to be paid. You're not looking for anything. You're just looking for that experience. And also, because these people haven't seen before, they haven't seen this material before, you know, it's a brilliant experience for them and for you. The other thing as well, I mean, I don't know about over in America, but over here in the UK, we have things called like open mic sessions. Normally, you get a lot of musicians, comedians at these kind of venues, but a lot of the bars and some restaurants now are starting to where you can go down, you know, you can get on stage. Basically, there's like normally a PA system, a microphone. You can go down, you know, do equivalent like 2, 3 songs normally if you're a singer or a guitarist. But have a word with the person that's organising it. Go down to these venues. Say, look, I'm a musician. I'm starting out. Would you mind if I get up and just try a few things with the audience? And again, it's basically putting yourself in that firing line. There's a lot of the situations, you know, the routines that you might have, whether it, especially for mentalism, you know, in one of my stage shows, I actually make a joke about this. You know, I am a mind reader, but for me to stand by myself and read my own mind isn't that impressive. So I'm going to hopefully call upon everyone of you in the room. And I make a joke out of that, and it kind of gets people on your side, and it also has them knowing that you're going to use them as a spectator. At some point, you will be calling upon them to help you out. So when you are having to go into the audience, grab someone out of the audience or out the seat, they don't feel as disrupted. They don't feel as hard done by. You know, they're not going to try and fight with you to get up on stage, even though a lot of people do because they're nervous and they don't want to be stood up or shown up in front of their family and friends. So it's almost like a reassurance thing for your audience that you will be getting up on stage, but obviously you're not going to embarrass them in any way. That's another great way going about that from the offset to say who you are, what you're there for, and that you will be getting people up on stage to help you out. And it was something that I started doing years ago, and it's aided me ever since. But also using these open mic sessions and things like that with various friends of mine, we'll all go down and we'll try out a few ideas, especially with new material, whether it's something that I've created or something I've bought or whatever, read in a book. I will think, rather than trying it out on one of my live shows where I'm being paid, I'll go to one of these venues and I'll try it out, you know. That way then it's not, you know, a big audience where it might go wrong. So even if it does go wrong, there's not going to be that many people there either. You know,
how important do you think? Like I personally videotape every single show. How important do you think that is?
Yeah, I record every single one of the performances, especially if I'm using new material. I've got like it's actually over there in the corner. I have a biro pen which normally sits in a shirt pocket or my suit pocket, and it's got a little video camera in it, and it also records sound. So that's if I'm working close up or even on stage, it will pick up everything that I actually say or I'm bantering, whether it be script. The video quality is not brilliant on that; it's only a tiny camera, but the sound quality is perfect. So again, that's brilliant for audio. And you know, if there's something on stage and you know, I'm bantering with an audience member or something like that, it's good for that. Also, I'll have an actual video camera on a tripod at the back of the theatre, videoing the audience, videoing the stage. So it's got like a big panoramic view, and it sees everything. So yeah, definitely, I highly recommend videoing the entire thing, both for your own suitability, and also you can review all the material later on as well. I believe that David Copperfield has somewhere in the region of 8 and 10 cameras and records every single show every day, and has done for
everyone in the
many
shows,
years.
and I think they actually watch them afterwards.
That's what I was just going to say. I believe he actually reviews every single camera, every film between his shows as well, and he has done for many years. So yeah, I mean, if it works for him, it definitely works for me. But yeah.
Let's take some questions from the audience. Frank wants to know, there's a lot of gimmicks out there in mentalism, like mental epic, calculators, predict a total. and all the other numerous book tests out there.
Yeah,
Do you think that those have a legitimate place in mentalism, or do you think it's more mental magic?
the way that a lot of the magic world is becoming, a lot of these now are purely and simply, this is purely my own opinion, a lot of this is now becoming magic for magicians, if that makes sense. It's becoming more of a situation where, well, I've got such a mental ethic, well, I've got this version, my version's better than your version because of this, this, and this. Whereas there are techniques that have been used for hundreds of years which can do exactly the same thing. Whether it be using a sheet of, you know, a penny sheet of carbon paper underneath a sheet of normal A4 paper and you image duplicating that way, right the way through to using one of these £1,000 products that will do exactly the same thing. You're still duplicating that information. It's pure and simply just a method as to how you are gaining that information. So a lot of the, I mean, in an audience like spectator kind of viewpoint, all they see is they've thought up something, they've wrote it down, and you somehow either know what they are thinking or drawn, or you've somehow managed to duplicate that information. They don't know or shouldn't know about the method in between. So realistically speaking, it's more just bigger, better products for other magicians. And I mean, you mentioned metal epic. That's an age-old technique that's been used by hundreds of different magicians over the years. And it is a great, great routine, and I highly recommend it. But again, there are easier, non-gimmick ways about going around that same routine. I'm sure you know most of them anyway. You know, it obviously works on a very old principle, which is a great principle. But yeah, again, whether it's image duplication or whatever that gimmick is, I would always highly recommend anyone that's going to go out and buy a product to simply sit back, read over the effect, and think, how will I do that trick, knowing the skills that I already know, and then try and look at the actual key points. There's normally always a key point with that product. It might say no switches, no carbon, no forces, and things like that. So whatever method that you may have worked out, do use those key points as a ticking off point, because you never know, you might actually work out either a new method or a better method that will work better for you, rather than spending a couple of £100 on a product that you might not actually need or might not actually like once you've invested all that money in it. And obviously, I might be totally wrong here in saying this, but you might go through all these checkpoints and think, well, yeah, I've come up with a routine and I've come up with a method and I've read it all, but I still like this and it will still be better for me. Then fine, yeah, go ahead, buy that item, it might work better for you. But those are always key points that I would use myself. Whenever no matter what the item is, not just necessarily mentally, but also magic and everything else.
Could you adjust your mic for me one more time? And I think that was some brilliant advice. I mean, that was really, really good. How important is cold reading to your act, if any?
Cold reading. Okay. Cold reading is something that I have been using for quite some time, and I know there are a lot of people that find it extremely hard, especially to get into. You might get a person about your audience, and there might just be absolutely nothing, and there is no whatever it is. Whether you're using what's known as Barnum statements, rainbow statements, anything like that. That kind of process to get into the read, to get that tell off that person. I've had many conversations with other entertainers and people who use the technique. They always say the same thing, that first process is always the most hardest. Basically convincing them of knowing something about that one person, about that individual, whether it's for a question and answer, whether it's to tell them about themselves, whether it's about a relative. I use cold reading a lot, whether it's for guessing which hand an item's in, whether it's for playing card identification. No matter what it is, I do use it a lot. But it was after many a hundred conversations with different performers, and many of them all saying the same thing. That is when I created my recent product, the Oracle, the Oracle effect, which is this actual set of cards.
Oh,
So
nice.
that
Those
was
look
actually,
great.
yeah, there you are. I don't see those, all the thickness of the canvas. I can see the design.
Oh, wow, they
That's
look great.
yeah. Those are the back design. Each card has its own category and paragraph of statement as a written answer. The idea with this is, I wanted it as an alternative to something similar to like your ESP cards. In doing that, what you can do is have a person, you can have just one of these cards, or you can use the entire set of these cards. And in doing so, what you're able to do is have a person ask any question, any category, and you're able to just take that and hand it to them. They can read it out, and it will give an accurate answer to the actual question that they've answered, that they've asked. Now, you don't even need to look at these on the face of yourself. The way that I've had these designed and manufactured is that each card is also marked. So in the instructions that I've provided with these, you can have them obviously situated in various locations of the body. You can use them in 101 different ways. But this is the most recent product that's due to be released in about a week's time.
What's the
So
price on them?
um, I'm actually going to offer anyone that's watching this feed a pre-release. So if anyone wants to get a copy of this, they can actually privately message me either through Facebook or my email, and I will allow them this at £20 a copy. That comes with a booklet, the card, and everything else that you need. There isn't one particular routine or effect with it, because, like I've said before, I want people to use it like you would a pack of cards or EFT cards. So if you want to set up like as a fortune teller, you can, and do it as a direct question and answer kind of scenario. Again, you can. You can have them as a prediction or anything like that. But the answers that are in them are really for question and answer, or to get into cold reading as well. So basically, the categories in them. There are 7 cards, 7 categories. So no matter what question a person answers, you can take that straight out, pull it up, have them read it, and it will be an answer to them. Or you could have it as sort of like a cold reading answer to that question. And then obviously you can move on into cold reading techniques, whether using a Barnum statement or just looking at the body language. I know Kent Neffer and a few others have done a lot on cold reading. I think one of Kenton's.
I'm having a hard time hearing you,
Hello,
bud.
you
I'm
there?
sorry.
Yeah. Is that any better?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I
that's
know.
better.
Yeah, I know.
You,
Kent
you
Neffer
were
he
talking about
released.
Kenton Neffer?
Yeah, Kent Neffer he released a publication a number of years ago called Deeply Cold, and that was also a fantastic publication. It gave some great ideas, great advice, especially on cold reading. Some advice that I was given many years ago when I first started out in cold reading and utilizing it with my performance was personally just try and get to know as many different types of people as humanly possible. And in knowing those kinds of people, when the moment you get a person up on stage, you can try and relate that person that you've never met before to one of these people that you do know really well. And then what you're able to do is, with that person that you've never met before, is simply describe the person that you already know. And in doing so, it's not 100% at all, but it does normally always work. I would say about 80-90% of the time. And in describing that person to them, you're hitting home near enough every single time. Like I said, it's not an accurate method in when doing it, but again, it's a great way of getting into cold reading. But I hope that helps anyone that even wants to get into cold reading.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. I think cold reading is a tremendous tool that either whether you're doing psychic readings or if you want to enhance your mentalism routine. I mean, it's brilliant to enhance mentalism because you can take a thing and just blow it out of the water with cold reading.
Well, certainly, massively so. I mean, even doing like an image unification, just a throwaway comment. You turn and say, "Oh, you thinking about whatever?" I just use it as a throwaway and say, "Oh, that's why I can't focus on this." And because you've utilised that cold reading statement just as a throwaway, you say, "No, can we focus on this? I need to focus on this. Name the playing card, the image, whatever it is. Forget about that for a moment. Come back to this." And I've utilised that quite a lot in performance. And again, like you say, it does enhance a hell of a lot of your performance. And to the audience as well, it's hugely telegraphed when they're reacting. How the hell did he know about that? So yeah, highly, highly recommend it. Anyone that's wanting to use mentalism, definitely check out Boulder's it is worth the investment, but it isn't something that you can just pick up overnight either.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different resources out there for cold reading for people to find. And Kenton, like you said, is a brilliant resource. I mean, he's some great material. I was going to ask you, when do you script your show or do you wing it at times?
I try and script, I would say about 90-98% of my shows, mainly with material, and obviously for the blocking reason, especially if it's a stage show. I'll always try and script the actual material, what's coming on, what's going on. But obviously, as you know yourself, when you're getting spectators up and on and off stage, and I mean, God forbid there is a heckler in the audience, when it's physically scripted, spoken, it can be very difficult. So, you might get a person up on stage that might be slightly drunk, might not quite behaving properly. So at that point, yes, you will have to kind of improvise slightly and, go around things. But there are things in my show which have to be word for word scripted, or, the blocking has to be exact.
And I agree with that. I think that's, in a lot of mentalism, you have to have a script that's word for word for it to actually work with the psychology and misdirection, the different principles involved in, to make a mentalism effect work.
That's it. I mean, there are now things like your verbal forces as well, which have to be a script spoken in a specific way or a specific manner. Or, you might need, like, sort of like not necessarily an instant stooge, but obviously nowadays the thing quite famous like dual reality. So again, it does heavily rely on certain words and phrases being used in a specific manner. You may be saying to one person, when I do this, but, you might be actually tapping them on the back or, activating something. So it does heavily rely upon your actual script and command what looks right to an audience. Maybe something slightly different on stage, or just the actual routine itself. And I think that goes back to like the old electric chair routine, quite famously, with like the instant stooging, right way through like modern day, with people like Darren Brown with his sticking a hand to a person, sticking a person's hand to a table. Absolutely fantastic material. But again, strongly relies on scripts again.
How do you go about selecting your music, and how do you cue it?
Normally when I'm working a theatre show, I would have all my music queued up ahead of time on like 2 CDs. One that I'm actually working with, one as a backup in case the first one ever goes wrong, God forbid. I will also have it electrically backed up, so I'll have like either an iPod or my phone or some form of like memory stick or something like that. It's all electrical as well. So basically I'll go one that's playing, one that's backup, and then an electrical backup, all queued in and ready. The actual queuing technique which I use is quite simple, quite straightforward. I have a my manager doing it who knows my show as well as I do, both the method, technique, and everything I know. Because it's a simple thing that technology always fails. It will always fail, always has done. It's a man-made invention. So the best thing to do is actually physically have a person there, physically working your music in your life for you. It's worth the investment, always has, always will be. For argument's sake, obviously in discussing this, my microphone keeps playing up. So if you're on stage, that's the worst thing you can have working is obviously your microphone putting in and out. Whereas obviously if you've got a person off stage with a soundboard in front of them, they can do their best to try and sort it out for you without interfering with your show. And the same goes for your lighting, music, or anything like that. The selection of music.
Yeah, where do you find like the inspiration for it?
I have an enormous collection of music. It's totally eclectic. Some of it is classical, some of it is rock, some of it is metal. I've got piano music. I mean, on my show at the moment, I've got soundtracks from films. I've got classical with Building, the Four Seasons. I've got even Seal, Kiss from the Rose. These are all tracks which I'm currently using in my show. So there is no particular style of music. It's just literally a song that I'll hear and I will literally just think, I've got a great idea what I can physically do with that music. There are some fantastic tunes out there, and I recommend it. The person that wants to magic to music is listen to all of them, see what is comfortable to you. Try and work out your own style first, because you might think,
Well, music can give you a different. That's a good
that's
point.
it. They're all
Because
at different tempos. They're all at different paces. So I mean, you don't want something like the really heavy metal rock if you're going to come out wearing tailcoat, and thick bow tie, because it's just going to clash with your character. Um,
yeah, and that's a great
whereas,
point.
it's just going to hugely clash with your character. Whereas if you're coming out with, a big red, clown nose and a wig, you might want something circusy or sideshowy, something that sounds more humorous. It purely and simply, you want it to reflect the character that you're using, also the style of magic that you are
Still
performing.
here?
Yeah, I'm still here. You know?
Okay. I think you cut out. Okay.
Okay. I think what you got to remember is the music is basically another medium that can only strengthen the visual aspect of what it is that you are presenting. Magic is a huge visual art. It's one of the biggest in the world. Um, Music is basically an auditory to that. So basically, they should complement one another, not clash. Um, I mean, I do my own version of the floating rose, and that's where I use Seal's "Kiss from a Rose." So by utilizing that lyric in the actual routine and the timing of it, that is how I get them both to complement one another. I also utilize classical music in my show as well when I need something more focused on the actual visual aspect of what I'm actually performing or presenting at the time. Um, and again, it depends whether you're doing something quite horrific, like swallowing razor blades or needle through arm or something like that, where blood is involved, right the way through to doing like ball manipulation or card manipulation. Um, so again, it can complement one way or another, but it will always strengthen your routine. Or that's what you're aiming for either way.
Here's a question from Laura. She wants to know: do you use ESP or Zener cards in your act, and how do you feel about esoteric methods?
I over the years I've used both. The most recent cards which I've actually used has been playing cards in my actual stage show. The kind of which I use are the like A4 kind of jumbo cards because I didn't want it to seem like a magic trick in a mentalism show. So by stating out and out that I am going to be using playing cards, but obviously with these I can't manipulate them in any way because they're too big to physically hold. And at that point, I would basically break them up and have people in the audience mixing these up by cutting them and gathering them up. Similar, I would, I had some ESP cards, traditional like circle cross wavy lines. I had those blown up onto big cards, like big A4 boards, and I use those similar. I know more recently, after I had those manufactured, that I've actually stumbled across a few magic companies now that actually print and manufacture jumbo ESP cards. I guess it's purely simply down to what it is that you're using on your own show, and what the routine is that you're needing for. Um, I have used both, and I don't see a difference in using either. Again, it purely simply comes down to what routine you're using, or what aspect of the show that you're actually presenting. I mean, it could be a suggestion kind of show, it could be a pure direct mentalism show. Again, these are only tools of the trade. That's like saying to a plumber, which do you prefer, a spanner or a monkey wrench? They're two different tools, but they do the same job. They both work the same thing. It's purely simply what depends on what the job is at the time. At the end of the day, people shouldn't focus on the props. They should focus on the person doing it. As an audience, they should never think that it's just a trick deck, or, oh, well, he's using special cards, or, well, those cards look funny. They should be thinking that it's you, as a mind reader, able to read that person's mind. Whether it's a newspaper, a book, a pack of cards, a pad of paper with a pen, it shouldn't make any difference. It should always come down to the fact that how did he manage to know that information, or how did he make me know or choose that card or information? And that's what a lot of people overlook. And this goes back to what I said before about the selection. If you are going out buying the product, you've got to try and think: is this product going to strengthen me as a performer and my character, or is it just another gimmick that I'm using on stage? Is it going to look like a magic prop? Is it going to be that big glitzy box in the corner of my stage?
Ironically enough, you mentioned character. Frank just asked a question about your character.
Yes,
in your persona, are you like frenetic, like Kreskin Spooky, like Max Maven, or are you more educated, like Darren Brown? Or it's I mean, or are you completely different? What exactly is your stage persona? If you could describe it in a nutshell for us.
Persona, the first out and out thing that I always try and do with an audience is put them at ease, get them on my side. So I'm more of the Darren Brown kind of style of opening and persona. However, the things that I use on my stage shows and everything like that is more similar to that of like Max Maven, that kind of performance. So it's kind of a compilation of several other people's characters, but it's more of my own character. It is more my own character than anything else. But as an example, I'm trying to obviously compare myself to other performers.
You're cutting out again, buddy.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, it is
Could you
more
repeat
of my,
that last section?
yeah. Basically, I was saying it is more of my own character, my own style that I work. But I also, as reference, I try. So obviously the viewers can understand is I try and get the audience on my side right from the offset. So that's more similar to people like Darren Brown and things like that. I try and keep it as though I'm just maybe someone that you could happily pass in the street or meet in the bar, something like that. Even though I always wear a suit, I'm well presented and everything else. When I'm obviously performing, no matter where it is, whether it's close up, whether it's wedding, stage, I'm always well presented. I never wear like jeans t-shirt or anything like that. But I'll always try to get the audience on my side, which is more like the styling of Darren Brown compared to like Kreskin, Johnny, people like that. But the material that I actually use is more similar to that of people like Matt's made compared to that of Darren Brown. I mean, a lot of Darren Brown stuff is a lot to do with suggestions, suggestibility, where I don't try and go down that route with a lot of my material. I have done in the past, but I try and steer away from that.
Do you use the disclaimer when you perform, or are you one of those guys that doesn't feel you need to give one? Or what is your disclaimer if you do use it?
As far as disclaimers go, there isn't really much of a need for one. The only disclaimer really that I actually advertise is actually normally either written on the tickets or on like the bottom of the posters, which is the actual show that people are about to see is more suitable for people over the age of either 12 or 15, depending on what the actual performance is. And that's purely and simply because in certain parts of my show, it's normally in the second half of my show, it's the idea of kind of like danger, like doing a Russian roulette, or I've done a hypnosis routine in the past, or a seeming hypnosis routine, where I would get a spectator over at the audience, and I would do like a human pincushion effect using an audience member. So basically, I would, apparently knock them out, and then I would basically put a needle through each of their arms. Now, my version is a genuine spectator, totally unknowing, and they aren't spooked in any way whatsoever. But again, because of that, if there are any children in the audience, then it can have quite a lasting effect on them, which you don't want to be upsetting children, and you certainly don't want to be upsetting the parents of those children, because basically they're going to be coming back with complaints either directly to you or to the management that's hired you or anything like that. So those are basically the kind of things that I would always make people aware of before doing any performance. If you are knowing that there may be there's a chance of children or families in that audience, always make them aware within that section that is where those kind of things are going to happen. I know several of the performers do similar things as well.
Do you, let's say sky's the limit, totally creative. If you could spend the day with any mentalist, living or dead, who would it be? And what do you think you would discuss?
Ooh.
I mean, what topics would you discuss? What would you ask them? How would you pick their brain?
I would probably think of, I would love to spend a day with Ted Animan. Obviously passed away now, I believe, but I would love to spend some time with him. Second to that would be Matt Smith. And again, I would love to see them, or like get to know them outside of the kind of known stage persona, to basically try and see what makes them tick. Especially with Animan, because some of his writing is absolutely fantastic. And again, for any mentally starting up, again, highly check out a lot of Ted Animan's work, purely simply because those tend to all be really old school methods, and are absolutely worth the wait and go every day of the week. Again, whether it's his kind of like one ahead principles, whether it's his billet work, he's got some absolute brilliant routines, and obviously methods again. So I would love to be able to spend time with either Matt Nevin or Ted Arnold.
I know you have some deals going on right now for Full Circle Magic members. Can you tell us a little bit about your deals and what you're offering?
Yes, I had a few, which I believe they should have all ended last week, but I had the cognition effect, which is a anytime, any place, basically image or anything written, any thought, mentalism routine. So basically, you could hand a person a business card. They can write anything they like, whether it's a word, a name, a number, a drawing, anything they want, big or small, anywhere on the entire blank side of the card. You can walk out the room, they can walk out the room while they do it, keep it totally hidden, totally secret. They then come back in, they place that in amongst all the other cards, any which way they want. They mix all these around all over the table, so it's totally hidden in there. They can examine the steel case, show there's no hidden parts or anything like that. They place all those inside of that, and that gets fastened in, and they themselves hold it in between their own hands. And by that point, you know exactly what information it was on that card. That I'm actually currently offering as a PDF document. I actually used to stock this as hard copy, so you get it as a book and the tins of the cards and everything. Those sold out in over 3 days.
Yeah,
So
it's brilliant too.
yeah, so now I'm actually offering this as a PDF. I kind of rejigged the instructions slightly because the cards that contain everything is ungimmicked in anywhere. There is a slight setup with it, but once you set it up, it will last you a lifetime. And it stays in your pocket. It's good to go, whenever you need it. It's a fantastic routine. I carry it with me everywhere I go. The other items that I've got, as I've said, is the Oracle, which I was speaking about earlier, which I'm going to offer. As you can see, I've got various other books and publications here. The Pro thread, which is invisible thread. I don't know if you can see that. The extremely reliable thread. It's what I use in pretty much every one of my stage routines and stage shows. It's also one of the methods I use on my stage show of current. The OBBE routine is a serial number divination. Um, I, I've never actually tried it with US currency, like the dollar bill. I've never actually got hold of the dollar bill to actually try it. But basically, you're able. I know with the UK currency, because I use this every day. It's a totally impromptu routine where a person they take out their own money out of their pocket, they fold it all up, and you can place it in a wine glass, shot glass, have them hold on to it themselves. Hell, they can even sign it and mark it. You never seen it, never touch it, but you're able to tell them the entire serial number without ever going near it. So
Oh,
that was
that's
a
great.
routine. Yeah, there is no pre-show work. You don't need to switch it, peek it, do nothing. You don't even touch it. So the only time in my own personal presentation is I take it once it's all folded up, I hold it at the fingertips and have them sign it so they can see that it is being switched for another one. It's now marked, and I'll stand it in a shot glass, so like a whiskey tumbler, so it's in full view. And then you can physically just walk away from it. And I'll take like a blank billet out of my pocket, and I'll concentrate on it, and I'll write down something that I'm picking up, and I'll hand them the card, and I'll have them actually physically read it out, take the bill, unfold it, and then confirm that they match. I came up with that a few years ago, and I shared it with another company here in the UK. Um, and basically, it actually got published in the project with many other magicians and mind readers here from the UK. But that is the same routine that basically got published in there. I've also got various other products here. The Cyclone Pad. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. That's the Cyclone Pad, which is basically a image duplication effect. Um, it's a great routine. I carry these everywhere I go. The A6 inside, so they fit perfectly in your inside pocket. But they're also big enough to work on stage as well. Um, in the actual full kit, you get obviously your instructions, the pad, all the envelopes, the billets, absolutely everything. But that's the pad itself.
Oh wow, that's nice.
Itself. So there are no
That looks
electronics,
great.
nothing like that. It looks totally clean. It just looks like a normal notepad you would have lying around anywhere. You can do 1,000 routines with it. I've given several within the actual instructions. Those are all routines which I've used on stage myself. Each pad is good for over 100 individual performances. Um, you can have a person take out the wallet in a different room, place the credit card inside an envelope, seal it totally in that envelope, bring it back up on stage, and you're able to tell them what the actual number is on their card. Uh, Again, while they're holding the envelope and everything else. Um, there is also any word or any number test. The routine of an ID which I gave with that is because to me, I don't like book tests anymore, and it's only a personal choice because I wanted to bring the book test up to date. And basically, this idea is what basically formatted the entire manufacture of that pad. I personally felt that book tests was slightly becoming outdated because you don't find in modern day times many people carrying a physical hardback book with them anymore. A lot of people now have Kindles or apps on the mobile phones and things like that. Or 9 out of 10, most people will find it through Google on the handset. So I thought, well, you can't really do a book test with that format. And as soon as you start bringing out your own book, straight away it becomes questioning. So I wanted to come up with a method and a way in which I could do that same kind of book test or any word using any person's mobile phone or a Kindle or anything like that. And the routine that I gave in the instructions is that I wanted a person to basically be able to take out their own mobile phone while still stood in the audience, scroll through any one of their own text messages, select it, and then choose any word out of that actual text message. And basically, as they're doing that, you can be apparently writing something down, place it down. They can obviously call it out, and as you turn the pad around, you've already written both the name of the contact and the word that you've selected from that text message. And
That's
obviously,
amazing.
that's it. So
we can actually purchase all this on your site, correct?
this is it, yeah. Yeah, or if you come directly to me through Facebook, I'm happy to give a 10% discount on any one of these products that I've mentioned.
Okay. Well, you know what? We're running out of time. You've been a fantastic guest, and everybody at Full Circle Magic thanks you for joining us and giving your time. I'd like to thank Laura Isley and all the other admins out there, and most of all, I'd like to thank you, the listener, and all of our dedicated board members. And you know what? Full Circle Magic wouldn't be it without you. Thank you guys, and y'all have a great day.
Thank you very much, guys.
You were wonderful. Thank you.